Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Nigel Farage will not stand as candidate in the 2019 election. So, odd choice, of course, for somebody who's leading a party and, of course, believes that he's very capable, given his history, to bring about Brexit in the first place, or at least the referendum in the first place, and his success in the European Parliament. Voted in MEP, very good job. However, of course, as an MP, Member of Parliament for the UK, his luck has been significantly less, and therefore he might think, well, seeing as I've failed 7 times already, then there's no point in embarrassing myself again, and therefore I'll go with the safe option of not running at all. This comes on the heels of Johnson saying that he will not accept any pact with Farage. Johnson says it increases the risk of Corbyn being put into power. I'd say it's the opposite personally, given that the Brexit Party are going to be contesting the seats of the Conservatives as well, seeing as they are the Brexit Party per se. However, there is still significant support for the Tories, and Johnson is very good at campaigning, so I presume he's hoping to use that support that he's already got and capitalise on it through his campaigning. The main criticism from the Brexit Party, particularly Farage, has been on the deal given. Farage says it's almost as bad as being in the EU, despite Johnson saying it's a great deal and it's oven ready, just stick it in the microwave, yes, good to go. But nonetheless, that is Farage's decision, which will likely lead to splitting the vote, of course. If it's done, well, hopefully, for both of them, I suppose, you've got to hope it'll still be done in different areas sufficiently in order for a coalition to be formed. And as I've said before, I don't think the Brexit Party is united enough on anything other than Brexit to be able to be a reasonable force in Parliament for the next 5 years, and the Tories will basically get their way if they do agree. But as they don't, the problem they face is with the seats in the particular areas. Instead of on a national scale, it's on an individual 650 seat level. That is to say that where the Tories might have had a majority before, for that one seat where you can only have one, they will then detract from the Tories there, and therefore Labour, for example, could outmaneuver and win. But on the flip side, you've also got the Lib Dems splitting the vote. So it is very much a 4-party race, which I find particularly titillating. This would be maybe in an area where it's quite conservative but also Remain. That's where I think it's all to play for, because you'd still have the die-hard Conservatives saying, yes, we will vote for you on a matter of principle. You'll have some Brexit supporters who would say, well, we actually want Brexit, therefore we're not going to overgoing with the Brexit Party. And then you'll have people saying, well, how about Labour then as a more reliable option to stay in the EU, and then the more hardcore Remainers, of course, saying, well, no, we're going to go with Lib Dems instead of the Conservatives from principle. And it's those seats which will be particularly interesting to see how it all pans out, since this will then be the 3rd referendum for being in the EU or not. Yes, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is now a 1 in 3, apparently. Thrice-in-a-lifetime opportunity, how about that? But only if you continue to vote the way that they don't like. I'm sure if the Tories and Brexit Party get this, then they'll still find a way to get around it in order to then need another election or another referendum, because these people will never let it go, these Ramoners. So, says Nigel Farage has said he will not be standing as a candidate in the general election on 12th of December. The Brexit Party leader told Andrew Marr he had thought very hard but had decided he could serve the cause better by supporting his party's 600 candidates across the UK. I don't want to be in politics for the rest of my life, he said. Corbyn said Farage's decision was a bit weird, given the Brexit Party hopes to stand in most places. Yes, that's probably the most polite thing Corbyn has said. But let's read on. We get the idea with that. Johnson maintains the only way to go out of the EU is to go with the deal we've got. Again, I would say no, still WTO terms are good. The reason that you know it's better to go on those terms is that the EU keeps giving extensions, which means they want as close as a relationship as possible with the UK, because the UK is good for the EU and the EU is bad for the UK. So they wish to be as parasitical as possible in order to prolong the relationship. With that in mind, despite them saying that we're just being nice, cool their bluff and just leave on WTO terms. Easy. Farage said Johnson's deal kills off any chance of genuine independence. If Boris is determined to stick to this new EU treaty, then that is not Brexit, he said. Well, that was the fear from the beginning, that it would be in name only, and we would continue to lose our sovereignty and be second to our EU overlords. And unfortunately, Boris's deal is a bit too friendly, shall we say, in order to serve the EU. A bit too compromising. So, analysis, who cares? But Treasury Minister Rishi Sunak hit back at the criticism of the deal, telling the Andrew Marr show, "I campaigned for leave. I spent a lot of time talking to my constituents and others across the northeast and New Yorkshire. What do they want from Brexit? Good question. They want to end free movement and replace it with a point system. They want to end the fact that money keeps going to the EU year after year. They want to make sure we're in control of our laws, and also they want us to have an independent trade policy. These are all things the Prime Minister's deal delivers, except it doesn't. Does it? When in talking about free movement of people, that is also in line with the hiring practices, and it doesn't really help to diminish that enough for people to be happy. And we have been lied to before by the Tories saying, oh yes, we will limit immigration down to like under 10,000, so just a few thousand, maybe tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands as it has continued to be. They want to make sure we're in control of our laws. Well, seeing as we would have to be compliant with the EU regulations in order to trade with them like that and be so friendly with them, that can't happen. And finally, they want us to have an independent trade policy. Well, again, the EU doesn't let us at the moment, as we're part of the EU, and they wouldn't afterwards, given the deal. It would still be very difficult to try and work something out with other countries, even though the other countries are happy to do it, South America in particular, and all the countries there. So what he would say to Nigel Farage is, sometimes in politics, as in life, you've got to take yes for an answer. This is not one of those times, though. John McCommunist, suggested that a Labour government would seek to end privatised contracts in the NHS. Please go away. If you really, really want a social healthcare system, then you have to close the borders. You can't have unfettered immigration that are a strain on the economy and on the healthcare service as well. You can't have that. It's impossible. It's economically impossible. And if you wish to, then close the borders. That's fine. But you don't want to. The Conservatives have strongly denied that the NHS is up for sale. Yes, even Corbyn seemed to confuse himself with numbers, but so what you'd accept from a socialist, saying, oh yes, well, Boris is 350 million to give to the NHS a week. Now he's saying that, he's going to use 500 million for the deal with Donald Trump. So, well, over what time period? And isn't this then more spending on the NHS, as the Conservatives have continued to do so, as it came from Churchill, a Conservative, as in he commissioned the Beveridge report, which, okay, the Beveridge report itself wasn't Conservative, fair enough, but he kept it going, and over the 74 years, is it, that it's been out, 75 years, something like that, it's been Tories leading it for 44. It's been over half, and they have continued to plough money into it, despite not getting a good return, because government always does things slower and worse. An example being, well, you see, workers, where we're going to dictate that you can't work that much, in which case what you're going to do is apply to an agency which is going to let you work at your own job for sure the same pay, maybe a bit more, but the agency is going to take a cut as well, which then costs the government, which I mean costs the people, the taxpayers, more as well. So again, no, just please stay out of it or leave it. It's not a very conservative position anyway, but that's a whole other issue.
Asked if Labour would scrap the expansion of Heathrow Airport, McDonald said the party would make the decision based on a set of criteria covering the environmental, economic and social impact of the project. So basically, he can't say because it's a divisive issue. On the current criteria, we said very clearly, Heathrow expansion doesn't qualify. Well, I mean, seeing as you want to kneecap the country, that's fair enough. And on taxes, he said Labour would increase income tax for the top 5% of earners and raise corporation tax in order to pay for investments in schools and training. It never stops at the rich. It starts there and then it trickles down. And why else do we know that? But then again, I suppose they believe that supply and demand, supply side economics to be a myth as well. That you need the rich people there in the first place to pay for things, invest in things, be the first ones there in order for it to then become affordable for people who couldn't afford the new items. But they don't believe in that either. So I suppose they think, yes, the income tax is definitely going to stay at the top. And even if it does, then you're limiting people to earn that much, because why would you bother? Capital flight happens, just leave to a better country. And I have heard pushback to say, well, yeah, but the richer people don't want to do that because the schools here are better and therefore they want their children to go to school here. Thinking, well, at some point you're going to say, well, no, it's better to just get a tutor, for example, because, hey, we are talking about the very rich people anyway. And when he says raise corporation tax, well, what's the difference between a corporation and a person, given that it's the people that run the corporations? So that's it for now. It's mainly about Farage, but of course the BBC has to throw Labour in there as well, seeing as they can't smear the Brexit party enough. So then they have to bolster support for Labour. But hopefully I could help stop that. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If Labour does actually have any sensible policies that they're bringing out and I've missed them. If the NHS is actually a Conservative project, as I mean the party, I mean the ideology, a right-wing project, if you will. And what you think of Farage not running for his own seat. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed your weekend and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you and good night.